The WNBA's claim of record-breaking finals ratings just got blown wide open. What sounded like a historic surge in viewership was actually the result of a quiet shift in Nielsen's tracking system, counting casual, uninterested passers-by in gyms, bars, and airports as viewers. Instead of celebrating legitimate fan engagement, the league and ESPN leaned on technical loopholes to inflate numbers. What's worse, the finals themselves had little buzz, empty arenas, and near-zero social media traction, making the rating story feel more like spin than substance. This attempt to mask stagnation with manufactured metrics didn't just mislead fans. It backfired. The disconnect between what people saw and what the league claimed only fueled skepticism and hurt credibility. With Caitlin Clark drawing massive, authentic engagement earlier in the season, the finals' hollow performance without her revealed what truly drives attention. Real stars and real excitement, not manipulated data. The league's desperate optics play only made its fragility more obvious. The WNBA just got caught in one of the most awkward PR flops of the year, and the fallout is hitting hard. For weeks, headlines screamed that the WNBA Finals had hit their highest viewership in nearly 30 years. Massive growth, record ratings, a breakthrough moment for the league. Those were the claims being pushed by both the WNBA and its broadcasting partner, ESPN. But just below the surface, the numbers were hiding a very different story. One rooted not in authentic growth, but in manipulated data, methodological loopholes, and a desperate attempt to manufacture momentum. Let's start with the obvious question. How does a league that struggled for years with stagnant ratings suddenly pull its biggest numbers in decades without a major cultural moment, viral highlight, or widespread buzz? Turns out it doesn't, not without help. And in this case, that help came from a change in how viewership was measured. Specifically, a change made by Nielsen, the ratings company that tracks who's watching what on TV. In 2023, Nielsen rolled out a new methodology called Big Data Plus Panel, which, on paper, sounds pretty advanced. But in practice, it essentially opens the door to counting passive and incidental viewers. People who aren't intentionally watching the game, but just happen to be in the same room as a TV. We're talking about folks walking by screens in bars, glancing at TVs in gyms, or sitting near one in an airport terminal. These aren't fans. These are passers-by. And thanks to this new method, they were all counted as viewers. So when ESPN and the WNBA claimed record finals ratings, they were leaning heavily on this new system. The numbers were technically accurate under the new rules, but they didn't reflect true fan engagement. It's like handing out participation trophies, and then calling a sellout crowd. Sure, there were more eyes on screens, but not in the way people assume when they hear the words, highest viewership in 30 years. This all might have flown under the radar if it weren't for one major detail: the total lack of actual excitement. If the finals were truly pulling record-breaking numbers, you'd expect to see media coverage everywhere, clips dominating social media, and fans actually talking about the games. But that didn't happen. In fact, there was a noticeable silence. Outside of the official broadcasts and a few loyal WNBA accounts, there was no cultural wave, no water cooler moments, no breakout plays, just numbers, suspiciously high numbers. And that's where people started digging. Analysts and fans online began picking apart the data, and what they found only made things worse. The ratings weren't just inflated. They were padded with out-of-home viewers and cherry-picked segments that showed the highest possible numbers. Some outlets only reported peaks, not averages. Others conveniently skipped the context of how those viewers were being counted. It wasn't a lie exactly, but it was far from honest. If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe. One of the most glaring contrasts came when people compared those inflated finals ratings to the real, organic viewership that Caitlin Clark brought in earlier in the season. Clark, the breakout star whose college career had already made her a household name, was a ratings magnet. Her games regularly pulled in millions of viewers the old-fashioned way. People sitting down, turning on the TV, and actually watching, not glancing at a bar screen, not walking past a gym TV. Real engagement. Real fans. And here's the kicker. Her WNBA playoff games drew significantly more authentic viewers than the so-called record-breaking finals. Let that sink in. One player, in her rookie season, outdrew the championship series of the entire league. That alone should have been a red flag. Instead, it got buried under layers of spin. At this point, the internet was not having it. People were calling out the obvious manipulation, highlighting the absurdity of comparing traditional TV ratings with this new, inflated system. It was like comparing apples to AI-generated apples. Sure, they look the same on paper, but one of them isn't even real. And then came the credibility problem. ESPN, the network broadcasting the games, also happens to be a business partner of the WNBA, which means they had every reason to make those numbers look good. The more success the league shows, the better it reflects on the investment. That's a massive conflict of interest. So when ESPN pushed a narrative of historic ratings without clarifying the context, it raised serious questions about transparency and integrity. No independent outlet verified the claims. No raw data was released. It was just headlines and vague percentages, and the promise that, yes, these numbers were somehow proof of a breakthrough. But the public wasn't buying it, especially when they compared it to what they'd actually seen: empty arenas, limited media coverage, and a glaring absence of any finals-related hype. This wasn't a case of bitter critics nitpicking a growing league. It was a fundamental issue of honesty. If the WNBA really wants to grow, and there's real potential there, it needs to do it the right way. Not by counting people who barely noticed the game was on. Not by riding the coattails of one superstar while pretending the whole league is booming. Growth means building a fan base, selling out arenas, generating genuine excitement, not gaming the numbers. What made the whole situation even more awkward is how transparent the dependence on Caitlin Clark has become. Without her, the league's numbers slump. The buzz disappears. Engagement drops. And instead of addressing that imbalance, the league tried to distract with data. But data manipulation doesn't create loyalty. Fans can tell when something feels fake. And this whole situation reeked of desperation. By trying to force a narrative of explosive growth, the WNBA ended up undermining its own progress. Because the minute people feel misled, they stop trusting. And if there's one thing that's hard to recover in sports or anywhere, it's credibility. Clark's rise has been a game changer, no doubt. She brings real star power, real interest, and a new wave of viewers. That's the kind of momentum leagues dream of. But instead of supporting that with genuine growth strategies, the WNBA leaned into illusion. They tried to pretend the whole league was rising equally. It's not. Not yet. The truth is, most of the finals' viewership spike came from counting people who didn't even know what they were watching. That's not a breakthrough. That's a workaround. And the irony is, it backfired. What was supposed to be a celebration of progress turned into a case study in what not to do. The numbers might have looked good for a moment, but the long-term damage is real. Because now, every stat the league releases will be met with skepticism. In the end, this wasn't just a ratings controversy. It was a trust issue. And once that's gone, the path forward gets a lot harder. If there's a lesson here, it's this. Metrics mean nothing without meaning. You can pump up the numbers, spin the headlines, and chase viral moments, but none of it lasts unless it's backed by real support. Caitlin Clark is bringing that. The fans are showing up for her. That's the start of something real. But pretending the rest of the league is already there, that's the kind of move that unravels progress before it even begins. So maybe next time, skip the shortcuts. Let the real stars shine. Build a momentum brick by brick. Because while it's tempting to chase instant wins, inflated success doesn't hold up under scrutiny, and karma doesn't skip leg day. If you're as old to spin as we are, hit that like button, drop a comment with your take, and subscribe for more breakdowns of the wildest moments in sports and pop culture. Trust us, there's always more where this came from. Now that the smoke has cleared a bit, let's talk about what this whole situation really exposed. Not just about the WNBA, but about the entire ecosystem propping it up. Because this wasn't just one awkward ratings press release. It was a full-blown collaboration between the league, its broadcaster, and a rating system that quietly shifted the definition of viewer. And all of them hoped no one would notice. but people did. Fast. The switch to Nielsen's big data plus panel methodology might sound like some tech-forward innovation, but the outcome was simple. Inflate the numbers. Suddenly, every person who walked past a TV in a dentist's office became a viewer. It was like counting anyone who drives past a bookstore as a book buyer, and then bragging that literature sales were through the roof. This move didn't happen in a vacuum, either. ESPN didn't just report these record-breaking numbers. They promoted them. Repeatedly, they ran segments, posted celebratory graphics. Anchors read it like gospel. And why wouldn't they? ESPN is financially tied to the WNBA through a broadcast deal and a long-term business relationship, which means when the WNBA looks good, ESPN looks smart for backing them. It's the definition of a conflict of interest, one that doesn't require conspiracy theory, just a basic understanding of incentives. And when you layer that on top of a league that's desperately trying to prove its place in the sports world, it all becomes clear. The record viewership was never about genuine fan growth. It was about optics, headlines, applause from the right media circles, but not from actual fans, not from the people who sit down and watch 4 quarters because they care about the game. You know, the kind of viewers advertisers actually want. That disconnect was obvious the second people started comparing those finals numbers to what Caitlin Clark was pulling by herself. Her playoff games brought in real fans. Ratings that didn't rely on people casually glancing at a screen. Her numbers weren't padded. They were undeniable. And they made the finals numbers look like a joke in comparison. Let's break this down even further. The finals were supposed to be the pinnacle of the season. The best teams. The biggest stage. The culmination of months of hard work. And yet, they couldn't pull the same attention that one rookie guard could generate in a first-round matchup. If that doesn't scream imbalance, what does? Caitlin Clark didn't need inflated metrics. Her numbers were so strong that they dragged entire broadcasts into relevance. People tuned in for her, and when she wasn't playing, the drop-off was immediate and sharp. That's not just a coincidence. It's a reality check. So, what did the WNBA do? Instead of acknowledging that their new superstar was propping up the league's visibility, they tried to spin a broader narrative. That everything was rising. That the whole league was surging forward. It was a classic case of, look over here. PR, take one true thing, Clark's success, and use it to mask the rest. The problem is, the numbers don't lie. Or rather, they do when you bend the definitions. But the fans, the sponsors, the viewers who actually care, they can tell when something doesn't add up. And when there's no media buzz, no trending moments, no viral clips, and no stadiums full of excited fans, it becomes impossible to believe the numbers being thrown around. Viewership isn't just about what's recorded by a machine. It's about cultural footprint. And the finals this year barely made one. This is where the whole thing tips into self-sabotage. Because now, even the WNBA's real wins are going to come with an asterisk. When the next report shows higher ratings, the first question won't be what changed. It'll be how were they counted? That's the cost of breaking trust for a quick headline. And it's a cost that doesn't just hurt the league. It hurts the players, the fans, and anyone who's genuinely rooting for women's sports to thrive. Let's be real. The WNBA has been making progress. Slowly. Organically. Some teams are building loyal local followings. More merchandise is being sold. Younger fans are getting invested. But none of that can be rushed with fake numbers and slick press releases. Growth doesn't happen through data manipulation. It happens through connection. The Caitlin Clark phenomenon could be that inflection point. A new generation of fans tuning in, following her journey, and by extension, discovering the league. That's how real engagement is built. Not by trying to trick people into thinking the finals were a cultural moment when they clearly weren't. What's even more frustrating is how this whole mess could have been avoided with a little transparency. If the league and ESPN had said, hey, we've updated how we measure viewership, and it now includes out-of-home data. So numbers may appear higher than in previous years. Most people would have shrugged and moved on. It's the lack of disclosure that made people feel misled. Instead of honesty, they went for headlines. And in doing so, they cheapened the moment. Because now, every record they tout feels suspect. Every press release looks like spin. And when you're trying to build credibility, that's the last place you want to be. What makes this even more ironic is that women's sports are finally having a real moment. We're seeing record crowds in NCAA women's basketball. Players like Angel Reese, Juju Watkins, and yes, Caitlin Clark are becoming household names. And fans are showing up, tuning in, talking about it. The interest is real, which makes it all the more painful to see that momentum hijacked by marketing gimmicks and number games. If there's a takeaway from this whole situation, it's that short-term validation can't replace long-term trust. The WNBA has always had to fight harder for recognition. But cutting corners isn't the way forward. Inflated metrics might impress investors for a quarter or two, but real fans aren't fooled. And here's the brutal truth. If your finals ratings only look historic because someone in an airport accidentally walked past the TV, then maybe the product isn't as strong as you want people to believe. Maybe it needs work, investment, development, not smoke and mirrors. The Caitlin Clark effect has shown that real growth is possible, but it has to be earned, not propped up by soft numbers and self-serving press releases. So where does the WNBA go from here? Step 1. Own it. Acknowledge that the numbers were inflated by a new system, and commit to clearer, more transparent reporting going forward. Step 2. Focus on the product. Build up the rivalries. Develop the stars. Make every game feel like an event, not just when a superstar is on the court. And step 3. Trust your fans, because they're not stupid. They don't need to be sold fake wins. They need something worth showing up for. This was a wake-up call. A moment of instant karma for those trying to game the system. But it doesn't have to be the end of the story. The WNBA has real potential, real talent, real moments of greatness. But none of it will matter if the league keeps chasing optics instead of building something that lasts. Let this be the last time we see record-breaking headlines that can't hold up under basic scrutiny. Let the numbers be real, or don't brag about them at all. While the WNBA and ESPN were busy high-fiving over these historic finals numbers, the actual engagement around the games told a completely different story. There were no viral moments, no iconic plays that echoed through sports media, no wave of fan-made content, or athletes going live with post-game reactions. It was quiet, almost too quiet for something supposedly setting records. It's like throwing a party and claiming it was the biggest one in town. Only nobody remembers being there, and no photos exist. You start asking, was it ever really lit, or did someone just turn the lights on in an empty room? The uncomfortable truth is, those inflated numbers didn't translate into real momentum. There was no measurable jump in merchandise sales, no spike in ticket demand for future games. Social media metrics, likes, retweets, clips shared, remain flat. In fact, when fans would talk about the finals online, it was mostly to question the sketchy ratings claims or to compare them, again, to the viewership numbers Clark had pulled weeks earlier. And here's the part no one at the top wants to admit. The gap between perceived growth and actual engagement is now too big to ignore. If the WNBA's finals were truly entering some new golden era of popularity, that energy would be felt in the culture, in the fandom, in the press. But outside of the official marketing machine, it was radio silence, which makes the league's spin campaign look not just misleading, but wildly out of touch. Let's not forget that ESPN has a financial incentive to paint everything as a massive success. They've poured money into the league, they've aligned their branding with it, and they want a return. So naturally, they're going to push whatever narrative makes that investment look smart. But at some point, pushing a narrative that doesn't match reality starts to work against you. Because fans can smell inauthenticity a mile away. And this wasn't just inauthentic. It was practically insulting. Especially to fans who do care about the game. Who watch every week. Who want to see women's basketball thrive on its own terms. Those people deserve better than being told a ghost crowd of airport travelers and bar screen lurkers is a sign of record-breaking success. What's more, this whole situation took attention away from the one thing the league should have been shouting from the rooftops, the undeniable force that is Caitlin Clark. Clark brought millions of new eyes to women's basketball. Not by accident, not because of gimmicks, but because of talent, hype, and consistency. Her fans are passionate. They tune in, they post about her, they buy her jersey, they show up at games. She brought authentic growth, and the WNBA could have ridden that wave into a new era of legitimacy. But instead of spotlighting that reality, the league tried to stretch that success across an entire product that simply wasn't ready to match it. That's the danger of overplaying your hand. You take a real win, Clark's rookie season, and dilute its impact by pretending the entire system is rising at the same speed. It's not. And instead of investing in honest development, marketing teams, infrastructure, better storytelling, building rivalries, they slapped on a shiny, inflated metric and called it proof. The worst part? That kind of shortcut isn't sustainable. You can only fake momentum for so long before people stop buying in, sponsors pull back, casual viewers lose interest, and the fans who were there from the beginning, they feel played. That's why this controversy didn't just blow over. It lingered, because it hit at the heart of what fans actually value: truth, trust, and a league that doesn't try to gaslight them into believing something they didn't experience. The WNBA doesn't need tricks to justify its existence. It has the athletes. It has the talent. And with stars like Clark, Reese, and others coming up, the future really is bright. But only if the league stops chasing artificial wins and starts investing in real ones. So here's the fix. Stop padding numbers. Start building stories. Stop trying to outsmart perception. Start earning it. Because if this rating scandal showed anything, it's that fans are paying attention, and they'll call it out when the math doesn't add up. Let this be the turning point. The moment where the league recognizes that manipulating metrics isn't just a bad look. It's a risk to everything they're trying to build. Drop the illusion. Focus on the product. And let the real ones rise. If you're still with us and shaking your head at the sheer audacity of these ratings games, hit that like button. Subscribe for more brutally honest deep dives into the chaos of sports media. And comment below, were you watching the finals? Or did it feel like someone was cooking the books while no one was actually paying attention? Either way, one thing's clear. Karma showed up fast, and she brought receipts.